Welcome back to the Crash Course Podcast. My name is Craig Crash Collins, joined as always by Brandon Scott, otherwise known as B. Scott. The dust has settled on the first IndyCar race of the month at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Today we're going to tie a bow on the GMR Grand Prix, and then we're going to get into qualifying weekend. We're going to do our draft of the Fast Six. We're going to do that, and that's going to be a lot of fun. First year doing that. Very excited to do that. And then we're also going to give our P1 predictions, break down everything there is about qualifying weekend. It's going to be awesome to hop back in as we get closer and closer to the greatest spectacle in racing. Just a lot of racing content coming your way over the next several weeks, and we're excited to bring that to you. And on that note, before we get into it, quick shout out to NASCAR. I know we don't do a ton of NASCAR coverage on the channel. We do our Daytona picks at the beginning of the year, and then we preview the playoff four towards the end of the year, as well as the when they return to IMS. But hey, if you're not already all raced out from Fast Six and Bump Day and all that fun stuff this weekend in IndyCar, go turn on the NASCAR All-Star Race on Sunday night, where as the NASCAR drivers return to North Wilkesboro. That's going to be a lot of fun. Very excited for that.
That's going to be fun.
I would have been excited for this in general, but it takes me back. One of the first racing video games I ever had was for the computer. It was Sierra was the sponsor. I don't know if it was called that, but it was like Auto Racing 96 or something like that. I'm butchering the name. That's not the name at all. But North Wilkesboro was one of the tracks that was on that game, and I absolutely crushed when I drove there. It was my favorite track in that game. So that's what first got me into it. And then just also seeing what they've done, revitalizing that track has just been awesome. I can't wait to watch that on Sunday.
And the thing that really kind of got the North Wilkesboro track being thought back up again and everything is the Peacock series.
Lost Speedways.
Lost Speedways with Dale Earnhardt Jr. And that's become a huge craze now, a huge hit of learning about these old tracks that are really historical, that have had really great moments, and then seeing what they look like now. But yeah, it's exciting. I mean, what's really cool is that they're bringing North Wilkesboro back a week after the throwback race at Darlington. So, I mean, it's just perfect. I mean, that's the kind of stuff when they made that schedule, put this schedule out, it was like, man, you guys knocked this one out of the park. Like, you set this up perfectly. It's awesome. NASCAR's on top of it right now. They're really killing it, I think.
Yeah. The only thing I'm interested, I would like also to see, would have liked to have also seen the throwbacks at the All-Star race, just to see all those old paint schemes at North Wilkesboro. Yeah. That would, even if because that was the cool thing too about Throwback Weekend, is that they it wasn't just okay, this sponsorship was with this car, so we're gonna throw it back. You had Ross Chastain rocking the UPS paint scheme for the Dale Jarrett used to have. You had we saw the Quicker State sponsorship come back to Daniel. So I mean, it was really cool to see a lot of the well, for one, I felt really old because some of the throwback schemes I remember watching from not that long ago, and I was like, oh man, now I feel old. But yeah, I would have loved to see those old paint schemes on display at North Wilkesboro as well.
Yeah. Well, hey, before we jump in, kind of some breaking news. The Pacers did not win the Victor Wembanyama lottery. The Pacers will be picking 7th in this year's NBA draft.
Yeah, it's one of those things where
right where they were slotted in the chances. So yeah, they had a 6.9% chance to get the number 1 pick, and they're going to be picking at 7. So it'll be interesting. The Pacers do hold 3 first-round picks this year.
Well, the Pacers don't win the number 1 overall pick, but Alex Palou did win the GMR Grand Prix this weekend. Spoiler alert, we're gonna get into that. Yeah, first race of the month. It got underway this past weekend. The GMR Grand Prix at IMS started off pretty awesome. Mostly because my dark horse, I went deep cut. For who I thought could potentially sneak up and win, Christian Lundgaard. And he goes out and he says, "Hey, Craig, thanks for giving me the shout out. I'm going to go win P1 award." That's what he ends up doing. He leads the field to the green flag at the GMR Grand Prix. Alex Palou, though, makes short work of him on the opening lap and takes the lead. First and only caution of the race comes out at lap 2 as Stingray Robb and David Malukas, teammates, make contact with each other. And other than that, it was really Alex Palou's day from there. He leads 52 of 85 laps, wins the GMR Grand Prix. Pato O'Ward and Alexander Rossi, they fill out the podium second and third. Christian Lundgaard finishes fourth. Felix Rosenqvist rounds out the top 5 in that race. Not a whole lot to go off of there as far as, different drivers led because of the pit strategy, but other than that, it was Alex Palou's day, and he takes the points lead. He now is your points leader. Pato O'Ward stays in second. He's 6 points behind. Marcus Ericsson sits third, 19 points off the pace. Romain Grosjean is 40 points behind in fourth, and 41 points behind him is Scott McLaughlin in fifth. So looking at this race, overall it was solid, but I don't really want to say it was boring, but it was just kind of became like, once you knew, it was one of those races where and every race fan knows this, like, kind of feeling in this kind of race where, like, you just kind of know. Like, you know it's that guy's day, and it's just a matter of, is something going to happen? Is something going to, break the other way to cause someone to kind of come out of the woodwork and take the win from that driver? Because even when Alex Palou was kind of mixed in with, when they were going through, like, pit stops and stuff like that, and he wasn't out front, it just kind of felt like, okay, this is really his race to lose. Like, even if he was like deeper in the pack, you're like, okay, eventually things are going to cycle through and he's going to be first again anyway. And it was just kind of, the focus was on where he was because he was on the right pit sequence. So, he was just really dominant all day. Once he took the lead on the initial lap, he just kind of, set his own pace for the race. It's his first win since Laguna Seca last season, his 5th career IndyCar win. He led 67 of 95 laps at that race. 3 of his 5 wins, he's led the most laps. So he has that capability to just, take over a race. And that's exactly what he did at the GMR Grand Prix. He catapults himself to first in the IndyCar points, as we said. First time he's had the point standings lead since Alabama last season. We talked about it a little bit last week where, I don't know if it's the contract dispute. I don't know if it's because of, just other drivers kind of taking the limelight last year, but he kind of got lost in the shuffle as far as, like, who we've talked about, and we forget, like, he's a really good driver, and he's now
he's a champion.
Yeah,
he's a champ.
He's put himself in prime position because, he's run well at the 500. He's put himself in prime position to potentially sweep the month.
Oh yeah, for sure. Look, this race is, if you look back on the history of the GMR Grand Prix, when it was the Angie's List Grand Prix or the Indianapolis Motor G or whatever, all of those different titles it's had, it's usually been a race dominated by the eventual winner. The only times we've ever seen it become really competitive is when weather becomes a factor, and weather was not a factor this year. So is it all that surprising? Because look, all the road course races at Indy with IndyCar and that have had perfect weather, Will Power has dominated. Simon Pagenaud has dominated. This past August, Alexander Rossi, he pretty much dominated that race as well. So it's not that surprising. Now, I think it kind of is a little bit surprising to see a Ganassi car be so dominant on the road course here, because it seems like that team has had their struggles on the road course. Scott Dixon has come close multiple times to winning this race, just to have it snatched away from him because rain came in, and that epic comeback victory for Simon Pagenaud. just a few years ago when the race was running great, and all of a sudden the skies just opened up and the rain came down hard. So that's kind of what we've come to expect with this race. But it was a perfect start to the month for Alex Palou. And it does make you then question, why is this guy wanting to leave Ganassi? Why is he wanting to go to Arrow? I mean, yeah, they pretty much had they rounded out the top five. They were on it themselves. So you're like, okay, yeah, kind of, but he's got such dominant equipment at Ganassi. So it's like, what is he? Why is he wanting to do this? But I'm glad to see him get into victory lane, because it does show that this behind the scenes stuff, the off the track stuff, the potential distractions with that are not bothering him. He steps into that car, and it doesn't matter who he's racing for. He's going to go out there and he's going to race the car hard. He's going to do his best to win the race and put himself in the best position to win the race as well. So it was good to see him get that win. And I'll tell you what, like you said, he set himself up really nicely to sweep the month, and he could be coming out of the month of May with a pretty commanding lead in the points. Especially, it's we're going into a thicker part of the season for IndyCar, where that's kind of back-to-back weeks throughout the month of June coming out of Indianapolis. So he has a chance right now to really capitalize and extend that lead and possibly come home with his second championship.
Yeah, I mean, that's really well put.
I mean, here's a question. If he were to sweep the month of May and then go on to win the championship, how would you view that as far as best seasons in the history of IndyCar?
I mean, we've seen. As far as other sweep, because last sweep we saw with Simon Pagenaud in 2019. And the year before that, we saw Will Power sweep 2018, if I'm remembering correctly. I think he won because that was that stretch where it was either him or Pagenaud, and they just alternated at the Indy Grand Prix. It would be, because the other two were with Penske. I'd have to look at the other two seasons as far as like how they matched up on the whole. Because they also swept the month and then went on to win. I remember them both being really dominant in those 2 years. So I'd have to go back and look just to see. But I mean, I would venture to say, though, because of his youth, not to go back to that narrative of like young guns and old veterans like we had.
I mean, he is young.
Yeah, but I mean,
age don't lie. That number for his age is young.
I guess still. I'd also like to know too, where were Power and Pagenaud in the points going into that race? Because were they already leading? Because Palou went from third? Was he third or fourth last week? No, he was third because Grosjean was fifth. Try to work back through what it was, but I don't think Palou was third. I think he was fourth. I think he went.
He was top. He was top.
He was top five. Yeah,
he was top five. But
he
was
not
catapulted.
leading.
He catapulted his way to the lead. I mean,
he leapfrogged.
Some other things had to fall in his favor there. I mean, obviously with Ericsson having a sizable lead in the point standings, but it'll be interesting because, I mean, Ganassi, when it comes to the month of May, they don't mess around, especially on the oval.
Yeah.
So can he capitalize on this momentum?
Yeah. I mean, look, just to kind of tie a bow on how dominant he was, because I have on here, one word to describe Alex Palou's performance, I would say dominant. That's really not the only way. I don't know if you've got another word, B. Scott, but he had such a dominant performance this past weekend that Marcus Ericsson had a decent race. He led laps for a while. It wasn't like Marcus he got to first in the point standings because Marcus Ericsson had a rough day. Marcus Ericsson led the race for a little bit. Like, it wasn't.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's how just unbelievable Palou was. And yeah, I mean, I'd have to, like I said, I'd have to know where Will Power and Pagenaud were, because I think I will remember them just being like, you kind of, like, their sweep in May solidified them as like, okay, they're gonna go win the championship. Whereas
Especially
not to say if Palou
with
didn't do that, like, I mean, obviously if he did that, that would obviously cement him. But I still think it's still pretty wide open as far as who I think would win the title. That
yeah.
makes sense.
And like, correct me if I'm wrong. This is the first year that they are not awarding double points
Right. Right.
for the Indy 500 winner. So that, I mean, when you look at it that way, it could, I think it would be more meaningful, more historical if he were to able to complete the sweep and then go on to win the championship. Because
That's
like when you
fair
look at
too.
Power and Pagenaud, when they swept, I mean, they basically came out of the month of May with triple points. You know, you get double points at the 500, and they just used that to propel themselves to the championship. So, you know, he had to take the lead, and, you know, there's no double points this time around. So it'll be interesting. But the one word I would use to describe his performance, I mean, yes, dominating or dominant, it hits the nail right on the head. But I would also say timely. It was a timely performance because of the history that his team has at IMS and how it can build that momentum for him that we've talked about so much here. So I think his performance was timely, and it sets him up perfectly for the rest of the month.
I like that. I like that a lot. Before we move on, one last little tidbit on the GMR Grand Prix. I thought it would be fun. Look, I'll admit it. Look, I'm a big fan of John Boy Media. One of their shows, Talking Baseball. They give out awards on their shows after, like, when they recap the weekend series and stuff like that. I want to do awards on for this race as well. We'll do it for the Indy 500 too. I want to give an award. We basically name our own award. It's not just like a one that's already given out. And I'm gonna give out the That's His Music Award. I don't know. It's wild that I chose to go wrestling with this, because I don't watch a ton of wrestling. I've more or less gotten, like, I know the memes of, like, the casual fan memes of of wrestling. But one of my favorites is just kind of like joking around, like when you're like something dramatic's happening and then like some music starts playing and they're like, that's John Cena's music, and he just comes out of nowhere, and
the old JR voice of Stone Cold, it's Stone Cold Steve Austin's here.
Yeah, that's what I
mean,
thought of.
there was no better intro music to, like, get everybody hyped up than the glass shattering and the Texas rattlesnake emerging on the stage.
And so what
gives me chills thinking about it.
What made me think of that is, we talked last week on the podcast, the struggles of Aaron McLaren, how Rossi and Rosenquist so far this season were having disappointing years to what, I mean, look, maybe
to their standards,
to
the standards everybody was
right.
looking
Yeah, and what our expectations were too. I mean, we expected Rossi to have this bounce back season this year after changing to a new team, and after finishing fourth at St. Pete, Rossi had back-to-back 22nd place finishes, and we wondered if the struggle, you kind of then at this point, like, we talked about it still being early, but you start, creeping into your head, was what Rossi was doing the last few seasons at Andretti Autosport the norm? Or, is something finally going to break his way? And, he did finish 8th at Alabama, but we wondered what he would look like coming to IMS, where he's won on the oval before as well as the road course. And he ends up coming to the IMS, coming to the GMR Grand Prix, and leads 3 laps, finishes on the podium. Is it crazy, awesome performance? No, but it does get him, it does kind of break the poor streak he was having. He's finally back on the podium. Actually, first podium of the season for him. at Arrow McLaren. He's able to do that. And a goal that we had for McLaren as well coming into May was Alexander Rossi and Rosenquist getting back to the top 10 heading out. Rossi's now 11th after, and if he has a good run at the greatest spectacle in racing, I mean that could place him inside the top 10 heading into the summer months of the season. He's not back in the championship hunt by any means, but things are finally starting to turn around. They're finally playing Rossi's music, out of the ring, and he's going to come in and hopefully turn some things around. He hasn't finished higher in the points, higher than 9th in points since 2019, and a stronger at the 500 could set him up to break that streak. So he could start finally getting to where we're kind of used to seeing Alexander Rossi being at least the first few years at Andretti Autosport.
So the award I'm giving out, I'm still trying to figure out the wording of this to make it sound good, because I don't want to say like snake in the grass, because that's such bad connotation. Like, yeah. So it's the
Here,
the
go
line.
ahead.
I'm gonna
Describe
say
it, and
it's
then we'll come up with it along the way. We'll find it.
Yes, so I'm giving this award to Christian Lundgaard because he had a quiet, good day, finishing 4th. And he's a guy that he can turn that 4th place finish on the road course and sneak. I'll call it the sneak award, the sneak attack award. He can really sneak up on us this month, I have a feeling. And that is kind of the first step. And he got finished P4, and it's not what everybody's talking about. All eyes are on Alex Palou. All eyes are on Arrow McLaren and how well they performed. Christian Lundgaard just kind of lying there in wait, and right kind of where he wants everybody, where not all eyes are on him, and then he can just creep up and bam, have an excellent end to the month. And I that's why I'm going with him with the sneak attack award.
I like that. See, I told you we'd find it along the way. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Look, I mean, yeah, sure. He, they said on the broadcast on Sunday or Saturday that he had obviously the win in mind. He wasn't going to accept. He was going to call anything other than finishing first a disappointment. But like, I knew I was going out on a limb when I said he was a dark horse to win the race, and the fact that he was up there doing the darn thing. You're right. We're not talking about him, but I mean, he had a good run. It's a team that we didn't. I mean, because even with him starting P1, you're kind of like, because like I mean, when Kyle Kirkwood qualifies P1 and gets his first win, you're like, oh, I mean, he's driving for Andretti. He's dominant. Up there with his teammate as well. Like you're feeling pretty confident that he might turn in his best. Turn in his first win. When Lundgaard had the pull, I was like, all right, that's cool. We'll see where it goes from here. I still don't know that I'm ready to say he's gonna win. And so for him to put on the performance that he did is pretty remarkable. So now we've wrapped up the GMR Grand Prix. It's time to now focus on the greatest spectacle in racing, and I wanted to mix it up, and do something different this year, and do a Fast 6 draft. So each of us are going to draft 6 drivers. I've made out a list on our sheet. But that's not where it's just kind of a point of reference. It doesn't, if they can be someone from not on the sheet either, if you want to go that route. But we're gonna draft 6 drivers of who we think are going to be in the Fast 6. It's Sunday, right, when they qualify for the Fast 6. So yeah. When those drivers go out there, to set up the first couple of rows for the Indy 500. So
Saturday,
and they cut off, right?
It's
fast 12, right? Isn't it 12? Then
yeah,
6?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So
it's they change it. Try to change it up every year. So
so yeah.
I don't remember exactly what they said the format was this year, but
because I'm not gonna lie, I don't know if the same people that are gonna come for us in the YouTube comments as they sometimes do. I thought it was Fast 9. But I even checked.
No, it is Fast 6.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say I double checked it, so I looked. I tried to figure it out before I did. I was like, I thought it was Fast 9 in the past.
I mean, at one point, I believe it was Fast 9.
Regardless, We're gonna pick 6
We're gonna pick
drivers.
6.
We're gonna pick 6 because we're not gonna sit here and draft 9 drivers.
No,
Because I don't think there's 18
because that would
drivers.
be almost half the field.
Right. Yeah. That'd be a little too much. So B Scott, why don't you kick us off, man? I'm giving you the right to who I
Oh
think
boy.
you should take at round 1 P1. Okay.
Oh yeah, this one's easy. The guy that's won 5 poles
Yeah, I was gonna say
at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
I'm setting you up for
Gotta
success.
go, gotta go with the Iceman, Scott Dixon, number 1 overall. I mean, yeah, he hasn't had the continued success during the race that he would like. But man, he knows how to find the speed for qualifying in that car. And it always seems like, everybody else like, oh yeah, from their previous qualifying run, they're down a little bit. Nope, not Scott Dixon. Scott Dixon is faster. Always. He knows how to get the right amount out of the car at the right time to make sure there's still more the car can give at the next run. It's unbelievable what he's able to do with that car. So got to go with the Iceman, number 1 overall.
Yeah, I like that. I like going Scott Dixon number 1 overall. Honestly, like that was the guy I knew was gonna go round 1 pick 1. And then from there, I didn't really have a game plan beyond that. I'm gonna try to see if I can get away with this, and I'm gonna try not to give away anything that I'm gonna say later in our predictions. But I'm gonna see if I can, because heck, spoiler alert, I'm gonna pick Scott Dixon to be on the front row. Later in our predictions. So I'm gonna see if I can get my other 2 in the draft. So I'm gonna start off with Joseph Newgarden. He was the fastest at the open test in April. He qualified 14th for last year's Indy 500. He doesn't, like, for whatever reason, like, he's not had a ton of success qualifying like super high in the field, but I think that ends. Like I said, I think he's been fast the last 2 April tests. And I think this year is the year that it finally comes around. Obviously Penske, tons of success at the Indianapolis 500. I don't know that he wins the pole, but I think he's in the Fast 6. I think this year I have a hunch and a feeling about Newgarden that he's going to be in that Fast 6.
What's interesting with Penske is they seem to decide they're going to go one direction or the other. We're going to try to compete for the pole, or we're not going to worry about that. We're going to work on our race setup, and we're going to perform right where it matters on race day. Now they haven't the past few years. They haven't had that. They've kind of struggled with that. So it'll be interesting to see how Penske can perform this year. So for me, my second pick, which would be the 3rd overall pick, I am going to go with Pato O'Ward. Pato has been consistently fast this year, last year. Had a chance to win the race last year. So I think he's gonna be in the Fast 6. So I'm going with Pato O'Ward.
I think this weekend was the first weekend he wasn't in the Fast 6. I think everywhere else he's been in the Fast 6, which has been pretty incredible for him. I may have been able to, and he started 7th at last year's Indy 500 as well, so he's usually up there. I'm gonna go with someone I probably could go with in the later rounds, but I want to go ahead and get him off the board because another guy that I have a hunch. Not a good strategy to go into a draft just drafting on hunches, but that's what we're doing here. That's the strategy.
It's so you got to sometimes.
It's a guy who started 10th for the 2022 Indy 500. He was 5th at the open test. He had a really fast month last May as well, and has won the Indy 500 twice, once in 2017 and in 2020, and that's Takuma Sato. I mean, because all the awesome things he's done, because he's usually put together great months at Indy, and they've all been with, he's been with, I think, Rahal at one point. He was with
Andretti,
AJ Foyt. None of it has been with the power he's going to have this year with Ganassi filling in for Marcus Armstrong.
Scary.
So I think Takuma Sato is going to put together a great month for himself. I've got him on my list as well.
See, that it's intriguing but I feel like his aggressiveness is it causes him to struggle when it comes to qualifying. Like come race day, come Sunday, race Sunday, Takuma Sato is going to be up there contending for that win at the even if it's at the expense of a few other drivers. Um, like because the saying was always you got Satoed. I mean, even somebody got who was it that got Satoed
Andretti
last
in
year?
the
Yeah,
qualifying, in like literal qualifying, because he
yeah,
wasn't on the
because
warm up
Takuma
lane.
Sato, like,
Yeah.
oh, I had no idea I was supposed to be on the warm up lane. How many times have you qualified for this race? I mean, so
This is not your first
there's
rodeo.
always something. So I when I saw that on the list, I was like, okay, interesting. So my next one, I am going with a guy that has had success at Indy. He's got some good equipment under him this year. He's a fan favorite, and he's going to be racing in his last Indy 500, so he's going to give it everything he's got. Give me TK Tony Kanaan as my third pick. I'm going with the Arrow, and he's with the Arrow McLaren this year, so I'm really excited to see what he can do because Arrow McLaren has had success recently of having good cars for the 500, and then you bring in two past Indy 500 champions into that fold this year, and I think that can only help them immensely. So I'm taking TK this round.
Hey, my favorite driver. So I'm always happy to see him do well. I'll be excited to see if he can go out on a good note at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That would be really cool to see. Third pick. This is where it kind of gets tough. I think I've gone off of a couple of hunches. And I think I need
At this
to.
point, that's all you can do is
That's
hunches.
true. That is true. Because yeah, really the one like we said at the beginning, the one breakaway is
But
Scott Dixon.
there is one driver sitting there that we've talked about a bunch tonight.
Yeah. You know what? You're right, and I need to kind of be a little bit more level headed and fill it out a little bit more. He was the winner of the GMR Grand Prix. We've talked about him a lot. Finished second at the Indy 500 a couple of years ago. Started P2 for the Indy 500 last year. Eighth in the test in April. Give me Alex Palou. I need to narrow things out a little bit. Took a couple of hunches with my first two picks, so I need to round my team out a little bit before we hit the back half of the draft. Give me Alex Palou. I think hey, we've seen him qualify well at Indy. We've seen him run well at Indy. I think one of the storylines to watch, something that we might be talking about here in a couple of weeks, is a sweep, like we've talked about before. So, Alex Palou, give me him with my third pick.
So yeah, you're right. Now it gets to the fourth pick. It's like, oh my gosh. So this one, I'm going back and forth because I could easily pick another Arrow McLaren car.
Just have the whole team on your team.
Oh, I don't want the whole team.
Yeah, I know.
That's the thing.
I know.
I don't think it's the whole team. But I feel like three of their four cars will get really good qualifying spots. You know what? Go ahead and give me my dark horse now because I want to make sure I get him. Give me Renus VK from Ed Carpenter Racing. I mean, look, he always seems to find his way to the front row. I know Ed Carpenter Racing has not had the success this year that they were kind of hoping, and it makes you question like what's going on. Why are they just not even close to being competitive? But there's something about the oval at IMS where Ed Carpenter Racing really shows up and shows out, especially in qualifying. They know how to get a lot out of those cars. And Renus VK has been a consistent recently up front. I'm going to take Renus VK at this point.
Like it, and he, of course, I know, like he had a strong showing last year. Was really fast, and then a disappointing end in the race. Crashing early. So I mean, he's gonna come with a lot of fire and brimstone, ready to bounce back.
I don't care how he performs in the race. I'm taking him for qualifying.
Yeah, right. That's what I mean. He's primed to have. He wants to have a good month again this year, and hopefully it ends a little bit better. You talked about taking a lot of Arrow McLaren cars. I'm going to go ahead and take one here as well, just because he's had a lot of success qualifying on the ovals. He's been there quite a bit. He's this year's Texas P1 award winner. Started 8th at the last year's Indy 500. He always seems to do well on the ovals. Give me Felix Rosenqvist. He knows
Ooh.
he knows how to get it done on the ovals.
Okay.
He's qualified well. I want to say he's won the last 2 poles at Texas. So he's really good on the on the ovals when he's qualifying. He's done well at the race before. So give me Felix Rosenqvist and with my 4th pick.
So my next pick, I'm going to take the last Arrow McLaren car. Give me Alexander Rossi. He loves this track. And I think he's rounding back into shape, comfortable in the car now. Go ahead and give me the 100th running of the Indy 500 winner, Alexander Rossi.
I've got, it's one of those things where like, it's at the end of any draft, you have a couple of picks you're okay with, like that's, if you miss out on one, you've got a good one for the other. I don't think you'll pick, you only have one pick left, you can't take both of these guys. So I'm going to go ahead and, go with, let's see, who do I want to go with? That's the bigger question. Give me, he's not on our list, but he was second on the, at the open test. And I'm going to try to double up on drivers that you like. So let's see. I'm going to go with Connor Daly.
Good choice.
I think he runs well.
Yeah.
You talk about the success that Ed Carpenter has, qualifying and at this track in general. He ran well in the open test, and he usually has really great showings at the Indy 500. So give me Connor Daly.
Yeah, I was going back and forth between him and who I'm actually going to take now. Give me Scott McLaughlin of Penske. I don't know. The way he has shown he can run at Texas, there's just something there. Getting that bright yellow number 3 Pennzoil machine back in contention at IMS. This is my hunch. I'm going off of a hunch, a gut feel. So can't really explain it, but I'm picking Scott McLaughlin right now to round out my 6.
I'm glad you mentioned him because in our preview podcast there were some comments that were like, "Hey, why don't you guys talk more about McLaughlin? He's doing really well." And look, he put together a good year last year. He's doing well again this year. So who knows? He might.
I just don't think he's somebody you truly automatically go to in your mind when you're looking at the drivers that are contending consistently. And we need to be looking at him because he is very talented. He's figured out an IndyCar rather quickly. He's a champion race car driver, and I think he's gonna break out here eventually on an oval. He's come close at Texas, like excruciatingly, painfully close. I just think it's a matter of time before he finally gets it. It took Will Power a while, but I don't think it's going to take Scott McLaughlin that long to get that first oval, get that first 500 win. But yeah, he needs to be somebody that you begin looking at on a weekly basis. I just think it's because he is so new, and there's been so many dominant drivers that we just kind of overlook him, and that needs to change.
For sure. I agree 100%. Rounding out my draft. Your draft is done. I'm going to round out my draft, and I've gone back and forth. Like I said with my last pick, I went, it's one of those things where, if all my fantasy baseball, fantasy football, compadres out there, and I know you've experienced doing this in fantasy as well, where like you want to pick between 2 guys and you can't decide, so you pick someone else and just hope someone decides for you if you're going to get one of those 2 guys. And so I thought after I picked Connor Daly and kind of hinted that I might take, I might get 2 of your favorite drivers, I thought you were going here next. You didn't. So here's where I'm going to go. 4-time Indy 500 winner, 4-time P1 award winner at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Give me Elio Castroneves. It's something where like it doesn't really matter how good or bad he's been in the qualifying or otherwise through the course of the season, there's just something about when he gets to Indy, straps that helmet on, where he just does just insane things and has just a magical month. So I'm
Oh yeah.
excited to see what he can do. Like I said, I know that we talked about it several times where Meyershank Racing hasn't always they've had a couple of they haven't had the greatest of luck since it's been Pagano and Castroneves, which is a little unfortunate. But Indy is where they can shine, and I think that Elio can get in there as well. I debated Marco too, because Marco Andretti sometimes can put together some good qualifying runs.
Yeah,
He was the 2020 pole winner, but yeah, give me Elio Castroneves to round out my team. So,
I
um,
like that one. Yeah.
so your six for the draft: Scott Dixon, Pato Award, Tony Kanaan, Renus VK, Alexander Rossi, and Scott McLaughlin. I've got Joseph Newgarden, Takuma Sato, Alex Palou, Felix Rosenquist, Connor Daly, and Elio Castroneves. So we'll see. We'll see who of those 12 end up shining bright on Sunday, and who ends up having good qualifying weekends. And now, without further ado, it's time to get to our qualifying weekend predictions. We're going to go through our highest qualifying rookie, our P1 qualifier, and who we think is going to be on the front row. Highest qualifying rookie for me is rookie Agustin Capanino or Canapino. He was the fastest rookie at the open test, albeit 27th. But I mean, hey, all you got to do is be ahead of the other rookies to be the fastest qualifying rookie. You don't got to be high
That's
in the
true.
field. He qualified 19th at Texas, the only other oval on the season so far. He was the second rookie in that instance, second highest. He was the fastest rookie at the final practice at Texas, 15th. He also finished 12th, which was the highest finishing rookie at that race. I would have gone Marcus Armstrong. Not to take anything away from Canapino, but I would have gone with Armstrong had he been running, because Marcus Armstrong has put together a really good year. I think he is going to be your Rookie of the Year winner. But yeah, I think he now since he's not running the ovals, I think Agustin Canapino is going to make a good run. So it's a toss up between the other rookies, but that's who I'm going with.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good pick, but I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with Stingray Rob. I don't have a lot of like numbers to back it up. It's another one of those hunches, and also the fact that that name is like the most IMS thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like that sounds like a guy that won one of the original Indy 500s back when it first began.
Either
You
that,
know?
or he sounds like someone like you're gonna go to Carb Day. Who's playing at the concert? Stingray Rob. We're gonna see his band play.
Yeah. I don't know. So it's an IMS name. So I'm going with Stingray Rob just off of that. It's really tough with the rookies because it is such an intimidating place.
Mhm.
And I mean, name me another track that has a rookie orientation program. Like seriously, it's yeah, it's intimidating. So it's really tough to pick that one. But I'm going with Stingray Rob just because why not?
Hey, literally the reason I picked him for Rookie of the Year. I was like, we got to shine some light on the greatest name in IndyCar. Um, so for our P1 award, we're gonna give P1, and then we'll get our front row. For who I think is gonna win the Indy 500 P1, I mentioned him in the draft. Got to pick him second. You always
There you
like it when
go.
you can get your good value pick lower in the draft. That is Takuma Sato. I know we talked about it already, but I'm going to get into it a little bit more here. He's qualified in the top 5 for 3 of the last 6 oval races. He qualified 6th at Texas earlier this season. He was 5th at the open test in April, second fastest during testing in Indy last season. He was fastest in the first practice with all the Indy 500 entries last season. He was fastest also at practice 4, Fast Friday, third fastest on Carb Day. He qualified 4th in 2017 when he won, and then qualified P3 in 2020 when he's won. He's just I mentioned it earlier. He gets to Indy and he's just fast. And that's what he does. And like I said too, most importantly, All of those were not with equipment that nearly measures up to what he's going to have this year with Ganassi, which I think gives him that other kind of leg up. So give me Takuma Sato to lead the field to the green flag at the 2023 Indy 500.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I'm going with my number one overall pick. I'm going with Scott Dixon.
3 straight years if that happens.
Yeah, I mean, and he can do it. I mean, it always just seems like what come qualifying, Honda really cranks it up a notch, especially at Ganassi. So you can't deny history. And history says Scott Dixon's going to be up there competing for the P1 award for the Indy 500. So I'm going with historically what is being told. I'm going with Scott Dixon.
Yeah, I mean, I've got him on my front row because my front row picks are Takuma Sato, Joseph Newgarden, and Scott Dixon. That's why I think the front row will be, come a couple of Sundays from now. Newgarden was the fastest at the Open Test in April. He's been in the top 3 in qualifying at 3 of the last 4 ovals. Highest he's qualified with Penske at the 500 was 4th in 2018, but he did qualify in the front row for, you guessed it, Ed Carpenter Racing in 2016. Ed Carpenter Racing, always fast. I did contemplate putting Connor Daly on my front row too, but I didn't end up doing that. But yeah, Joseph Newgarden will be up there, and then I do, like I said, I have Scott Dixon, who was 3rd at the Open Test earlier this year, qualified 2nd at Texas earlier this season, started P1 at last year's Indy 500, fast all month. He was fastest at practice 1, second fastest at practice 2, second fastest at practice 4, second fastest at practice 6, fastest at practice 7, second fastest at practice 8. Also, 5 career poles at Indy for your boy Scott Dixon. P1 for the last 2 500s, second in 2020. So he's always fast come qualifying. And so I can't imagine him. I was like, I don't know that I want to go with him for the pole 3 straight years, but he's definitely going to be on the front row. So I think that front row is going to be Takuma Sato, Joseph Newgarden, and Scott Dixon for sure.
So my front row, Scott Dixon, Pato O'Ward, and Joseph Newgarden. I mean, you're right. Joseph Newgarden has found the speed in the April test. I'm hopeful he can carry that over because last May he looked like he was going to be a really strong car from practice, and then comes qualifying and not so much. So it'll be interesting. I'm interested to see if he can carry that over. I think he can this year. But I'm gonna have him. I'm gonna put him 3rd, but Pato O'Ward always just seems to be there here recently. And obviously Scott Dixon. So Scott Dixon, Pato O'Ward, Joseph Newgarden is my predicted front row. I'll go ahead and give you my 4th. I am going to say Connor Daly 4th. I think he could surprise a lot of people. This is where he runs his strongest, and he didn't have the qualifying run he had hoped for last year, really because his draw was horrible. And the track conditions changed so much throughout that day. I think things can be a little bit better this year. Also, like I said, it all depends on draw. That'll be interesting to find out. But I think Connor Daly kind of puts everything together this year and has a really, really good run.
All right, well, there you have it. That'll do it for this week's edition of the Crash Course Podcast. Thank you guys all for hanging out with us. Remember, you can go like us on Facebook, 3C Media. Go follow us on Twitter at 3C Media Sports. Go over, if you're not already there, if you're listening on the audio version, go over to the YouTube channel, like us, ring the bell, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. You guys, have showed a lot of love to us on the YouTube channel, as well as the TikTok page at 3C Media Sports on TikTok. At 3C Media on TikTok. I forget the only thing that's different is the Twitter handle, because some scoundrel already has 3C Media over on Twitter. And also remember, you can listen to us every week on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard. You can hear the Crash Course Podcast. You can find me at Crash Course FM on Twitter. B. Scott, where can they find you?
Find me on Twitter at Brandon_Scott87.
Well, next week, qualifying will be done, and we'll be doing everything we can to give you all the breakdown, all the preview coverage of the Indianapolis 500. We'll be getting into the weeds for the 107th running. It's going to be a lot of fun, but until then, have a good week, everybody.